Okay, Sam, what I'd like you to do now is describe both the extrinsic and intrinsic factors in relation to sports injuries, describe preventative measures that can be taken in order to prevent these sports injuries, and give examples of preventative measures in sports which are designed in place to reduce risk factors, for example, from your sports, lacrosse and badminton, or from your coaching, or any specific examples that you may have used in sports to prevent sports injuries. Okay, good luck.
The first thing to talk about is the correct identification of risk factors. The first one within this I'm going to talk about is the intrinsic risk factors. Physical preparation. This means getting the body ready for exercise. If you not get your body ready, you would not be able to continue or get injured. An example of this is within circuit training. If you not get your blood pumping or your muscles warm, you could cause yourself to get a stitch or pull a muscle. This can also cause problems within the lungs. For example, football players, if they do not warm up before playing or get their body ready for exercise, they could cause a strain in the muscle, which means they could be out of play for weeks. The second one is posture. It means you're stood in the correct position for your muscles and bones to line up. Doing this is best for your body and puts less strain on it. It's found that 70% of all major athletes have bad posture. This is because they have constant strain on the muscles. An example of this would be in professional football, where because they are constantly using and training their muscles, they will generally have bad posture. Another example of this is within lacrosse, because they're carrying heavy equipment all the time, including all the equipment they wear. This causes extra strain on the muscles and means that they do not stand as well postured as other people. The third part is individual variables. This can be from gender to physical. This can mean that the sport, because of the opponents, because the sport may not be may not be suitable for women, or it could be that the person is not physically able to play the sport, or it could be simply that the person doesn't like the sport. An example of this is within football. In professional football, there are women and men's teams, but they are not allowed to play together. This is because of the physical abilities of the individuals, and it could mean that they get injured because of this. I'll go on to talk about the extrinsic risk factors. These are things like, for example, coaching is the first one. This is something they have to consider for. If they train someone in the wrong way, they do something that could end up doing it wrong or hurting themselves. For example, in gymnastics, if the coach does not teach the athlete how to land properly, they could cause themselves to get a sprained ankle, or anything worse. They could land badly and fall over and hurt themselves even more. The second part of this is within equipment. This is really important with sports, high contact sports, or the sports that use dangerous equipment. If you were to play, you're generally not allowed to play these sports without training on the equipment beforehand, because doing this will put you at high risk of injury. An example of this is the javelin within fitness. If you're not trained properly how to use this, you could end up seriously injuring yourself. Another point is within my sport, lacrosse. If you were to go onto a field and play field lacrosse without any armour or padding or helmet, you could cause yourself serious injury to go on with, because of how high contact the sport is. Environmental factors. This is when certain things within the environment and the weather cause certain sports not to be able to happen. An example of this would be in tennis. The sport is very weather depending. If the rain is too heavy and the wind is too strong, they cannot go ahead with the game. This is because the slightest thing can affect the ball and will make it too difficult to play. Another example for this would be within badminton. Although the majority of the courts are inside, some are outside, and playing badminton outside would need a very calm environment. Any sort of wind, rain, or any cold factors could cause the players to slip or could make a massive effect on the shuttle. The fourth one of the intrinsic factors is clothing footwear. Certain things are compulsory when playing sport, for example like removing piercings and tying hair back just to make sure they don't get snagged on sort of anything. But the safety hazards for this and the extrinsic factor is that you could cause yourself a lot of injury, for example hypothermia. If you were to play out, for example in football, if the players were to play in too cold environment without any sort of warmth, they would cause themselves to get injured. Also, say for example within lacrosse, if a male's going to play without say a helmet and they had hoop earrings on, which is not very likely, but could get a chance of getting it ripped out. Another example is if the boots are not tied properly and the laces are too long. Within football, it could cause them to slip or fall. The last part is preventative measures. The roles of a coach of preventing injury measures is making sure everyone is wearing the right kit. This can mean sort of things like they've got the right shoes for the right where they're playing on. For example, within lacrosse, if they were playing on an all-weather pitch instead of grass, they would choose sort of trainers, running trainers instead of studded boots, because otherwise they could cause them to trip and fall. Making sure that everyone is following the correct rules and regulations of the sport. For example, when playing badminton, if someone decides that they're not playing the game properly, they could cause arguments within the game, or if they're not following the same rules. Making sure that all dangers are minimal is another role of the coach. This means doing preempt risk assessments of the playing area, making sure that all the equipment is ready to use. Another point that I'll put at the bottom is making sure that all risk assessments are complete. So this isn't just sort of just badminton or sort of indoor sports. This is like all wide across sports, making sure that wherever you're playing it is right to play and it's not sort of been damaged by weather or someone's left some equipment out, for example. In the equipment and environment, you'll need to make sure the environment is safe where you're staying. So, for example, say you were to play on an all-weather pitch, but it had been snowing or icy the night before. Even in the morning, you need to check to make sure that the pitch is still not sort of slippy. Make sure that the equipment is all the equipment is being used safely, so that, for example, in lacrosse, if your head of your stick isn't attached properly with the right length screw, you are not allowed to play. Using the right equipment for the right sport. So, for example, although it's silly, you wouldn't be allowed to use a tennis racket within a badminton match. And using out-of-date equipment as well. This also can be related with lacrosse. About 20 to 30 years ago, they used to only use wooden sticks within the games. Now it is against regulation to be allowed to use wooden sticks. And putting the equipment back in the right place after use. Not doing this can mean the next people to use the equipment or sort of use the pitch could injure themselves on it as well.
Thanks, Sam. That was fantastic. Cheers.